I'm so excited that you're doing this with me.
I've
And
been looking forward to this for
I,
weeks.
right? It's funny because we get together just to catch up sometimes, not nearly as much since COVID, but
Mhm.
yeah, I have been looking forward to this. And it's so funny because when you sent over, because I know you as you, right?
Right. Mhm.
When you sent over your bio, I was like, well, damn. Like, she is beyond the badass that I knew she was. So,
Oh,
but
that's so sweet of you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I just love the work, do the work, you know, embrace it. Right.
it definitely shows. I want to say just really quickly as I'm doing this that for those of you who've been watching, I am now kind of starting to build up a few interviews. This is Work by Design, which I started to just have these really great discussions around design in regard to research design, workplace design, life design, interior design, all of those things, just the integration of them all. I am an industrial organizational psychologist. I am also an award-winning artist and painter, and wrote a little book that did really well. Fingers crossed, number two does really well. And these are conversations with people that I know and love, whom I admire, and who work by design in all different sorts of ways. So, Jenny Durbin is the Director of Global Workplace and Facilities at Lytics. And as a thought leader for the modern workplace, Jenny blends her passion for data and business analytics to drive corporate decisions with deep collaboration with her clients to develop a workplace program that is unique to the organization's character and achieves their objectives. In her current role at Lytics, she's responsible for the overall strategy and planning of all existing and future workplaces, ensuring an exceptional workplace experience along with day-to-day operational excellence of all facilities within the real estate portfolio. Jenny also studied industrial organizational psychology. She holds a FMP designation through IFMA, a certificate of laboratory design through Harvard School of EHS, and is a member of the San Diego chapter of CREW. She's also a frequent speaker. She has an Instagram handle, Workplace Jen, which is funny because I know it's JEN, short for Jenny, obviously, but I always think of the original word for Genie, which is Jen, Gin. Or actually, it's DGIN. Now that I'm saying it, I need to look it up. But when I saw your handle, Jenny, it made me think of a genie in a bottle, and how when you release them, your three wishes, no matter how ornate they might be, are granted. And to me, that's what you're capable of. You are literally this design, creative, analytical force, and you were really on the cutting edge of where workplace design was going many, many, many years ago. It's funny because even your bio ends with saying that you're a SoCal native, you're a mom, you're a Francophile, you're a world traveler. And I love that you just owned it. And you were like, and your reputation and work has been called cutting edge, engaging, insightful, and exceptional. And you are all of those things. So I am super, super excited to be able to just showcase your fabulousness and ask you, how do you work by design?
Melissa, with that introduction, I'm like, you make it sound so grand, and it's been this evolution in career and professional and interest that's just that I cherry picked across my career and cherry picked to create this space and experience and professional interest for doing what I do. And there's so many things I could go into in terms of how I chose industrial organizational psych and how that's translated, but is so applicable to what I'm doing today, even in the laboratory design space, to the workplace transformations that I'm working on now. But I'll table that for another day. But I just want to say that I'm so interested in this thought-provoking title and this space that you've created around work by design. So I've been ruminating on that and I've been thinking about that. And what came to me in thinking about working by design and how do I do that, for me, it's very intentional. So it's all about intention. And so if I'm staying on the side of how I approach my work for the moment, I think about being intentional and purposefully selecting the areas that I want to spend my energy in, that I'm intrigued by, that I'm energized by, or maybe there is a problem that I want to go after it. And so I'm just very intentional about thinking what those things are, and then where can my special sauce and my special interest in things kind of further that along or fuel that forward, right? And if I think about everything that I'm working on right now, I have multiple projects across the globe, everything from very tactical, I just need to get patch and paint and I need to get, sign off on fire alarm inspections, to workplace transformation and leading change and thinking through where the future of work is and how we're going to work in the future and what our workplace needs. I have to be very intentional about it, but I also have to keep those things moving forward. So for me, it's about intention and purpose, and knowing that even though I pick the fire alarm sign off done, and that might not be my passion project, there's absolutely work there that is so meaningful and transformative to me that I want to spend my energy in it, and I want to spend my time in it, even when it's difficult, or even when I cannot forge a path through quite yet, or I can't see where it's going quite yet. That just kind of drives me further to keep looking at it and keep exploring at it and coming at it from different directions. So that was kind of my first thought around, how do I work by design? How do I think about that?
So for you, working by design, for anyone who's watching who's maybe a statistics nerd, and who has nerves like me around statistics, although I somehow made it through, it's almost like you're looking at it from an ANOVA, like you've got all of these different, right? Where there's, I wish I could draw it out when I get better at technology on this thing. But you've got your dependent variable, you've got your independent variables, you've got all of these lines and everything is orbiting. Looking at which levers to pull when.
Oh my goodness.
In order to activate, deactivate, pause, play, like
what,
and even like trying to foresee like what might the interactions, right? Because sometimes you want a spark, but you don't want an explosion. What are all of those parts?
Right. That's very fascinating to me because my brain wants to translate dynamics, engagements, inspiration, casual collisions, work styles, how are people working together? I want to translate that into something I can quantify and then design and reproduce, right?
Yeah.
And so there's this element of how do I take something that feels very organic in nature or, not quite solid, and how do I put it into something that is, that I can represent in the physical environment, but also thinking about all the little sparks that go on that I could actually never account for. That whatever it is I'm doing, there's going to be some aha in the project or in the space that I create or the experience I create that I could never have accounted for from my early programming or my desire to kind of put it into, numbers in Excel spreadsheets.
Interesting. So what have you found like going through this? Because you've also working, from the perspective of kind of a facility space design. You also have worked, if I remember correctly, you've worked as an interior designer in different ways. You have this background in IO psychology, which is work design, in terms of processes, procedures. for people who are watching who don't know much about IO psychology is a little different than organizational psychology, in that it doesn't just focus on HR from the soft human side. It also really gets into processes and how a company is literally structured, and
Mhm.
how it, the inner work, the mechanics of it are, right?
Yep.
So you have all, like, you literally kind of embody what my idea in doing this was. Like, you're that person who is at the core of, like, you're that hub for all of these spokes. And
Mhm.
now you've moved into this role where you've gone into biotech for the first,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
labs. So how is that further iterating for you?
Sure. So I think early on, if I looked at my, my transition over time and to kind of really honing in and really like owning my understanding of what the IO
Mhm.
side piece is, and exactly how you described it, there is this hub of, you have this practical need of supporting facilities and real estate and very technical requirements, critical facilities that are 24/7, 24-hour operation, cannot go down, cannot fail, will not meet a project, will not meet, a goal if they go down. So there's this aspect that's very like cold hard facts of, producing these spaces and delivering those. And so there's an expertise and a pressure around making sure that you're on point and really understand what you're doing from the technical side. And
Mm.
then you layer on top of that the researcher mindset, or the team that is committed to the mission or the project that they're doing. Really, and for me, it's the mission of the organization and the mission of what you're producing, to improve human experience, to improve human impact. That's where I tie in and say these cold, hard, technical, very, very hard pieces that need to perform at their top level efficiency. You layer on this piece of the human spirit and this human connection of people wanting to further research and further that. And that's where the humanity comes in. And
Yeah.
that's where you're layering in and you're connecting between what the people want or what the team wants and
Mhm.
what their vision is to produce. And I'm creating the space that enables them to do that. And when I do that, that's that aha moment that says all that hard work or all that technical component that comes together for them, it produces the space that they can thrive in and that they can grow in. So for me, that was that aha moment of where I started to feel very strongly around transformative workplace environments and how the workplace, how the environment, how the brick and mortar can support and house these amazing ideas inside.
So that's really interesting. So I got a flash. I got, when you were describing cold and hard, and I'm thinking laboratories. I'm thinking cleanliness, infection control, and not just, and being able to really see, see what it is. You can't have, in certain areas of a company that are dedicated to labs, you need bright whites because you need to be able to see, right,
Mhm.
whatever might not need to be there. So
Right.
then when we talk about humanity and humans, we're drawn to color and texture
All right. Yeah.
and warmth. And so how are you addressing that just in the
Yeah.
materiality of the space?
Sure. Absolutely. So the other aspect is cleanability. Like you're talking about cleanability.
Yeah,
So surfaces that, are non-absorbent and can be easily cleaned with sometimes really harsh chemicals or
yeah,
harsh treatments, right? And trying to introduce finishes that are washable in terms of pops of color, or even the color of the cabinetry. It can be done in a way, or the work surfaces can be done in a way that introduces some color and life. Tile, and your flooring, all of those things are the play space for introducing that. And then I really appreciate, especially working in-house for organizations, infusing the company mission, the company brand into that space. So whether it's line of sight with windows and access to the outdoors to also kind of bring that piece in, line of sight to, what is the impact of the work that I'm doing in here? And I can see that on walls or features that are through the lab space or even within. So sometimes when you have a hard problem to solve and you can't just have free reign and free access, it causes you to think a little deeper and think a little bit harder to find something that works, that hits on that. And I would say that's actually part of what makes me unique in my role, is that even in the lab spaces where I'm really trying to make sure it's functional, it's efficient, this is, high performing space, I don't want to lose sight of those humanistic elements that need to be in the space as well, because it's the whole entire life cycle coming together to
Yeah.
make that space thrive, right? So it
Yeah.
has to have those elements in it that employees and researchers and team members can connect to.
So how have you seen since coming on board and infusing your ideology and your methodology to the workplace, have you seen how your design of the workplace has perhaps shifted or influenced at all the culture there in terms of uh, self-efficacy, mood, maybe
Mhm.
engagement amongst employees? I know COVID has happened, there's that, but
Right, right. No, that's a great question. In my time, so I joined my current organization in the year of the COVID, right? So I'm what's called a virtual new hire. And all of my relationships that I have built and my experience of the existing culture has been through virtual means only and very little tangible. So to really embody the culture of an organization, you have to be around it, you have to be present, and that happens in the office space. And then, as you know, with this whole pendulum swing of COVID, and we can work 100% remote, or can we? And kind of just asking yourself those questions as an organization, realizing through that period of time that the workplace has a purpose. So I'd answer a question and say that I participated in and led the leadership and led the teams to really fundamentally understand that there is purpose and value in our physical workplace, and that we want people to be together, and that there is the heartbeat happens in the physical workplace. It doesn't mean that you can't work remotely, or you can't flex in and out, but that real heartbeat happens when you're present. And so I would say right now, through the experience of going through the COVID, the internal evaluation, and let's answer the philosophical question of who am I? What's my workplace strategy, right? And kind of landing on the aha and the solution, or the model of, we recognize and have value in our physical workplace, and we want people to be together. That's what I'm seeing right now. So I feel as though we're setting a new foundation for our workplace and the people and that connection, and that coming back into the office is going to be this affirmation and celebration of what we had before, what we lost, and now a reinvestment, with the added benefit of saying, okay, it's okay to flex in and out a bit more, you know. So I think that's the real piece of work that we've done right now, is just reaffirming that foundation of the purpose of the workplace, and that we are a connected community, uh, no matter where we are, but we
yeah,
really thrive by being together.
yeah. And do you find that the employees share that point of view, that they want to come back, that
Yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah. So we've done we've done one full employee survey, and then I lead discussions, the day in the life conversations, and have a ongoing series of discussions with departments to say, how's it going? Tell me about your day in the life right now. How do you want to work in the future? And overwhelmingly, the majority of the organization wants to be back in the office 2 to 3 days a week. That's what we found. And that was the pulse check that we used to kind of build our initial space program. And that's working really well for us. So people want to come back. They're excited to come back. I now get to have conversations and say when we return, not if we return. So yes, people do see that. And there's a real, again, an understanding of the in-person connection and the team collaboration and those moments that happen in between your work time, that threads the group together, right?
Yeah, and I got so excited. If you were to put on your IO hat, just the fact that you're asking, and I get the feeling, and you can clarify, you're not asking just the formal leaders in the workplace, but you're asking everybody about their day in the life. Just what that alone does for employee engagement,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes. Tell
Yeah.
me. Yeah, tell me. And I'm also, I'm unique in that I work within the human capital and the people piece, but I'm also agnostic of that. So I'm a safe space for discussion around everything from how do you feel about returning, or how does it work? What does it feel like working from home? But what does the office need that I can provide for you, or that I can help support you to create? So I wind up being a very safe space for teams and employees across, and then I can thread those together for either my leadership or amongst their team themselves. And I can act as kind of this, facilitator of ideas and facilitator of thoughts to make sure the voices are heard and that the leader can make an informed decision about their area or about their team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoy that. That's the space wars too, right? That's the I heard this, I heard that. Now I'm going to bring the right people together. let's tease out what we really need to do here, and then move that forward. And I found that that's always been a really positive skill set that comes from the IO psych understanding, right? When you're planning.
What is something in your role that you wish you saw more at other companies? Because I don't know that I've seen your role other places. Maybe it was there and I didn't recognize it because it was called something different.
Yeah. I'd say it's actually emerging, right?
Okay.
So I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, or like in your own experience, we know maybe in the 7 to 10 years ago, this idea of workplace strategy was emerging, right?
Yeah.
And it was emerging out of space planning, facility planning, strategic facilities planning, master planning for sites. And this kind of started to understand kind of the early experience of what is it like for an employee or a team to effectively work in an office. That was like the early threading of workplace strategy, right? So as I started to really understand that, because my professional goal and my career goal was around honing my skills on being a strategic facilities planner. And that's looking at the real estate, that's looking at the strategy of investment, and when do you make an investment or choose to pull out. And it's also understanding the program and the teams and the people that are going into that space. So they were all very distinct, separate pieces that started to converge into this idea of workplace strategy. And then if you fast forward and say that's been brewing and percolating, along the way, and in my own particular career, there was an aha moment, several of them, where I was looking at the space design and it's not fitting the people need or the workplace dynamics. And I remember saying to myself, there has got to be a better way.
Yeah.
What is that better way? And
we bonded over that when we met, because I was looking at it from a psychological and purely design from the aesthetic point of view of design.
Exactly. And then my analytical brain is saying, how can I quantify it? I need evidence. I need to quantify this in order to really put a recommendation forward on how we should modify our workplace. But I needed to analyze it, study it, understand it in order to get there, right?
Yeah.
So So fast forward, we've got, 10 years ago with this workplace strategy piece starting to emerge. And then in my own career development, seeing there's got to be a better way. And then realizing that there is workplace strategy and research out there that's starting to tie together physical space needs with the needs of people in a business and an organization. It's like, okay, this was like that aha moment for me, right? And I would say now the pandemic has elevated that as its own brand of expertise, right? So I'd say this whole piece of this last year has been great for the workplace strategists out there who are saying, yes, this is exactly what we've been talking about. Is that where do you do your best work and the spaces that support it, right? This is fundamental. So why is it taking so long? So I'll take that it's taken so long, and now we're there. And then really to answer the heart of your question, what is this, what do I see now and the organizations that I'm with or the, I would say the organizations that are really forward thinking and resilient and want to move through and past this are the ones that are understanding the connection between human capital and communications and change management. And workplace facilities and IT. And I love that I work for an organization that sees that and that has that that thinking and that mindset, because that is the piece that needs to come together to really fuel wholesale change, or to really carefully and respectfully ease employees into a new experience that they love. They're going through a change and they've just been taken through it so gracefully. And to do that, that is the golden nugget, right? Or the golden unicorn.
That's awesome. It's so funny because I'm always so tickled when I get to try it out. In my very I haven't had the chance because I went back to school later in life, so I haven't had a chance to do all the research that I intend to do yet. In my in my master's program, I did a really small study where I tested people's memory and rated their and got ratings of their comfort in 3 locations. So the ideas was work task productivity moderated by workplace location. So I did their home, I did a coffee shop, typically a Starbucks, because that's where a lot of people get their work done because of the connection issue, because it's so and reliable. And then at work. My hypothesis, if I remember correctly, because I have to pull it back out, was that people were going to work where they were more comfortable. But what I found is that even though people were more comfortable generally at home, they were productive at work. And I think it comes down to what you're talking about. There's the culture. There's also the cognitive priming. To your point about facilities management and workplace strategy and design. At work, you have all of your tools there. You not only see the people that you see at work, which lets you know, hey, you're at work, they're working, you should be working too.
Right. Yep.
But you've got whatever it is that you need in order to be productive that day in that moment with that task. And that was a lot of the issue that came up when we went into lockdowns from an organizational perspective, is because many of us who could and who were fortunate enough to be able to continue working from home. It was ideal in that, we didn't have to deal with traffic or commuting, or we could be there with our families if we were living with families in a different sort of way. And didn't have a lot of us realize, oh shoot, I don't even own a printer. Or this chair is cool when I'm working at home at night for like an hour catching up on emails, but 8 hours a day on calls, or I don't have good lighting, or my house isn't as good acoustically as I thought it was. Like all of this letting in. So it just speaks to your point. And so now I'm determined to make that paper into like a little white paper. So that's next on my to-do list. But
Oh, I think that's an amazing paper.
but
I
you're
would
so
read
right.
it. I would read
Right,
it.
right. You're so right. And then also my mind goes to, because I know I want to wrap it up too. I don't want to take too much time, but you have literally designed your work, and
Mhm.
you started to, and we've shared this in common, because when I came into this industry, I didn't know that there was a workplace strategist, and I think I've landed where I'm supposed to be. Um,
Mhm.
but I was this fine artist and this painter, I had done
Mhm.
all these other things, and worked as an interior designer, and now a psychologist, and bringing that all together. So you and I both saw that at some point that we were maybe on the outside edges of the funnel, and
Mhm. Yes.
it's going to come into. And so
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you have any advice for anyone who might be watching who has these disparate skills and interests, and
Mhm.
who also wants to craft, right, or
Mhm.
funnel these
Mhm.
into something that's like a laser like focus that they can put as a byline. Like, this is
Oh,
what would
yes.
what would you suggest?
Right. Yeah. I have such energy for this topic too, because if you actually looked at my career path, it was the IO Psych. I chose the IO Psych because to me, it was very practical. It's
Yes.
business and it's
Yep.
people. And no
Yep.
matter what you do in life,
You
there's
always
business
got a job with business and
people.
people.
Exactly.
Yep.
100%. And but then along the way, I mean, I actually didn't declare my major until I was a junior.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because I was taking every single art class and French class that I could get my hands on.
Yeah.
And there was a come to Jesus moment that said, Jenny, you cannot make a career as an artist or just speaking French. So you're going to have to do something.
Yeah.
But I had this whole art side and this appreciation for design and this appreciation for color. And I couldn't quite let that go, but I also knew I had to be practical, right? So
Yeah.
fast forward, and those elements have all come together for me, where I get to use the creative side along with the discipline of IOPsych and the discipline of facilities management. And for me, because my career development was organic in nature, because I was working and observing and learning and realizing that there was an expertise, this workplace strategy piece, that wasn't fully formed as a discipline or as a professional career. I was cherry picking areas and mentors and people and programs that I could learn from to build this expertise. So for
Mhm.
someone who has very disparate interests or things that they look at it and they say they don't really connect, they do, because you're the unifying factor there. But
Yes.
but absolutely with that, look at how you can apply those, or look around you to the people that you're surrounded by or maybe you aspire to be,
Mhm.
and see what skills they have or see what they've done in their career to kind of help hone and refine for yourself along the way. And that's where that magic is, of saying, this is my special ingredient, this is what I bring to that role. And when you get to use the parts that you love that all seem disparate and you form it into one, like, that drives and fuels, that creates that energy to move you forward, right? So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
I love it.
could talk all day.
I know, girl. I'm looking at this clock and I'm like, okay, we got her.
Time, it's not
I,
time.
I'm like, nobody wants to listen to us all day
It's not.
long.
You can ask me questions. I want to hear, what are you working on? What are you doing?
Oh my gosh, we've got so much to talk about. So then I am going to press pause on this, and if you like, we can keep the
Yeah,
conversation going.
love
So,
that.
um, where can we find you?
You can find me at Workplace Jen at LinkedIn, and Jenny.Durbin1612 at Gmail.
I love it. All right. Thank you so much, sweetie.
Thank you.